Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Uh, welcome. I love it when it takes a minute to quiet down because that means that it's working. That means that the Impact Lounge is working because you all are chatting with each other, conversing with each other. Who's met a new friend so far? Somebody you hadn't met before. We want a lot more hands on the next one. We're gonna make you people meet each other because that's what we're about here at the Impact Lounge. For those that weren't at the first session, I'm Heather Mason. I'm the CEO and founder of the Impact Lounge, but it takes an entire team, and my teammates really work hard to bring you all the programming. So instead of introducing this panel, I'm going to turn this over to Rachel Conrad, who is one of our head of partnerships.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the Impact Lounge, Tribeca. And welcome to Protecting Artists' Livelihoods, Creating Pathways to Opportunity. Artists and creative workers are the lifeblood and architects of our culture, but making a living from creative work has never been more difficult. Whether you're a jazz musician, theater performer, filmmaker, or grip on a film set, the challenges of today's gig-based economy touch every corner of the creative workforce. Our panelists are leaders from the arts, workforce development, and entertainment industries who will explore what it takes to build and sustain pathways for creative careers, from mentorship and training to workforce investment and policy change. Now introducing our moderator, Elizabeth Joyce, the Executive Director, Intrinsic Entertainment Collaborative.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to introduce our panelists today. So we have Luis Miranda from the Miranda Family Fund and Colectivo, Ashley Hippolyte from Hollywood CPR, Natalie Robles from Group Effort Initiative.
These are high chairs for little people.
Carrying anything.
And I think I'll cue the video.
Yes.
So instead of me talking about the impact we make, I wanted to show the legacy that the organization Hollywood CPR has had over the last 30 years. So we're going to cue up a video whenever that's ready.
I had no point or reference to like where to start. If Hollywood CPR didn't exist, then I wouldn't be here.
It's really important that we're serving a population that is reflective of the city that we live in.
They're bringing in folks who would never get a shot in the film industry. There's nothing like it.
The fact that the relationships with the unions were so strong that, like, if you made it through this gauntlet, you actually would be a card-carrying union member and could go work in a real career and support your family. To me, that was a game changer.
They get you from skill to connections to career.
To be able to walk into any film set in town and be respected and get a job, that's magical.
Our connection to the union is really imperative to keeping the integrity of our program and the standard.
The program is very disciplined. It's not theoretical. It's hands-on and it's real-life experience.
If Hollywood CPR were to be lost tomorrow, we would lose the only IA signatory training program funneling candidates onto the roster and into not just jobs, but into careers.
It made me feel like I belonged in the union world.
I grew up in a rough lifestyle. I was sentenced to basically die in prison. Years later, I was granted a commutation through the governor. Scott Bunnick introduced me to Hollywood CPR. They introduced me to a different lifestyle, a career, not just a job. I was interviewed by Jason Seltzer, which is the vice president of Local 80 for The Mandalorians. He asked me to be part of his crew, and I've been part of his crew ever since.
I feel like I've been given a second chance at life. Hollywood CPR gave me a chance to not just get a job, but get a career.
Hollywood CPR saves lives, as long as you do the work.
If you're supporting this program, you are sending someone who's lived a tough life and didn't have a way into this business into a living wage career. And now you've changed their lives, their parents' lives, their kids' lives, and I couldn't think of a better investment.
Thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and get started with some of our topics for today. So there are a lot of changes, obviously, politically, culturally. We're in a time of huge transition in the entertainment industry and broadly. What does a sustainable career look like in 2026, and how has that definition changed over the last decade?
Any of us?
Any of you?
I'll start. Uh, this is a very difficult time, particularly for diverse artists and people in the arts. Because not only you have the challenges that comes from being that, but also you have the challenges of policy, of a government uh, that believes that diversity it's bad and that it was responsible for the death of the white middle class. Uh, so you have at the federal level and in many, many red states where there is active implementation of policy to eliminate anything that can help someone who did not grow up with the contextual reality of being an artist. And I'll end up by saying that's how we started the Miranda Fellows program when my son, when Manuel decided to go into the arts. His older sister is an engineer. I wanted him to be a lawyer or something else, but I did not succeed.
He did okay, though.
He did. He did.
Okay.
But when that happened, we realized what can we do as a family to provide the kinds of opportunities to diverse artists that we wished Lin-Manuel had at the beginning of his career, and sort of developed a program based on what we saw as a family and what we saw as needs and challenges he encountered in going into the industry.
I can just chime in with a conversation that Ashley and I were having yesterday because we, both of us in our organizations, we work with entry-level professionals who either have gone through 2 or 4 year education or maybe just entering the workforce and they're getting their first work experience. And then we're also working with a lot of the veteran working professionals in the entertainment industry, and they have very different ideas about how to build a sustainable career, what stability looks like. And we are sort of the intermediaries in communicating how to support both of those types of workers. And what Group Effort has really been grappling with over the last few years is creating a pipeline of support throughout entry level to mid level, helping them break through that barrier to be able to be in a manager position, in an executive level position, because we found, as we support a diverse pipeline, you understand the need to have representation and to support your community, and you'll come back and hire from the group of trained professionals and the network and the communities that we've built. So I think one of the elements that Ashley and I were talking about is really having flexibility, curiosity, and kind of diversifying your work portfolio. That is really how you build a sustainable career, because we're teaching the participants that we work with how skills from one job can transfer to a variety of different things, and you can take advantage of any opportunities that arise in a rapidly changing and very dynamic industry. There's a reason why we are all in the creative industry. It's very exciting, can be stressful sometimes, but I think it does, I think having that outlook of openness to multiple opportunities and being creative about how your work experience can transfer to something else can help you build a sustainable career in the long term and adapt.
Yeah, and I would just add, for Hollywood CPR, we were founded really to serve folks initially in the foster care community that were aging out of the system. And so our founder was a set dresser in Hollywood, and he would walk onto a Los Angeles production set, and he saw that it was not representative of Los Angeles. So for him, it was really important that these high-wage union careers, there was access and there was transparency to access those pathways. And so I think in this era with this administration, the work we're doing is going to be the same. We're still going to give access to those who have historically been locked out of this industry. I think we have to maybe reword things here and there, but I think we all have a vested interest. California has a vested interest. I know New York has a vested interest in making sure that everyone has access. So yeah, we're going to continue to build those pathways.
Wonderful. Thank you all. So when people hear conversations about the future of creative work, they often think of actors, musicians, writers. But what are some of the creative professions and workers that don't get enough attention when we talk about the health of the creative economy?
You want to start?
Yeah, I can quickly go. So we train, you saw a number of locals referenced over there. We train for union classifications, entry-level placement. So we train costumers, set dressers, grips, set lighting techs. We just launched a script supervision pathway. And all of these are very specialized industries. And there's a really important lens that they are artists in their own right. Lighting a set or dressing a set so that it evokes a certain emotion, that is part of the artistic process, and all of them collaborate to put a production together. And so I think we have to also look at all of these different ways for, as you know, they're artists in their own right. They contribute equally to the story as well.
We train nobody. What we actually do is that we partner with institutions that are in this business, rather than trying to pick Louise versus Charlie. We pick institutions, and the institutions are our partners. And then our partners pick the students or the artists that they are going to be working. And our job is to pay for all of that. We have seen most of the work now really focuses on theater, that on the one hand, we have tons of actors, many of them good. We now are also training stage managers, because you may not be an actor, but you want to be on a stage. And that's a pretty cool job and a lucrative job at that. We are training people who do fundraising for theater, because most nonprofit theater requires that. We are training connectivity experts, which is a fancy name for the people who read scripts and decide what's your season like in this theater or the others. So we have realized that there is an entire industry around theater, and preparing diverse people for all of the industry, it's as important as having the actors.
And I would just add, one of the things that we've really focused on is career exploration. I do not come from the entertainment industry. I'm a city planner, so it was completely eye-opening to step into this role and realize how many different workers contribute to the end result that you see on screen. Just one example is sound. We just up the street from our offices is a post-production and sound, smaller independent company. They brought us in to do a very hands-on tutorial. We were actually allowed into the editing booth, and it was extraordinary. You know, there are these artists who are also technicians who can enhance or minimize the experience of silence in a scene. And there are, you know, Foley artists who add or contribute to the sound of rustling footsteps or fabric or things like that. Like all of these different things, each person, it's an artist to be able to pick up and understand how all of these things that you might not even think about really contribute to the atmosphere and storytelling in a film or a TV production or even a commercial. And they're highly technical, very specialized. And they are artists. You know, I think when we were talking about what this company was looking for in training their audio engineers, it's that mix of both, and you just sort of have to have an ear for it. And so I think that's fascinating. I think just understanding the incredible variety and diversity of roles that there are that are both creative and technical, and you wouldn't realize it because you know, unless you're part of the making of that product. And I think it's extraordinary.
Just one more thing. I was trained as a clinical psychologist. Only thing I got out of that was my wife in the graduate program. 'Cause I hated listening to people's problems day to day. But I realized through that process that some people are going to help one-to-one, and that's important. But there's also systemic change that needs to happen. While you help 10, there are 40 who went to school and left the profession because they could not find a job and sustain themselves. So we have done a couple of things. We now have like 145 fellows. We actually had them all this past week. We bring them from all over the country to New York. But we then partnered the Miranda Family Fund, and we created a program that we call RISE, which is a platform where diverse artists of all types, from the sound person to the actor, can put all of their information and credit. And whenever we have a new production coming onto Broadway, rather than say, these are 10 people, it's go to RISE. You're looking for a sound person. See how many people, diverse people we have in our platform. And it's a way to sort of have a larger impact and make sure that people are constantly updating their credits so that when a potential producer or stage manager or scout goes to the site, your profile is up to date.
And that's a really important point that you just made about systemic change, structural change, as opposed to we need both, right? We need services that help people on a one-to-one level, and we also need organizations that are working to create that structural and systemic change. Just before the panel, we were talking about the country of Ireland recently conducted a universal basic income experiment with artists. So it's a basic income for artists program in which they spent 2 years paying artists. It was €325 a week. And what they discovered was that through that investment, for the equivalent of every dollar that they invested in artists' economic stability, they found that it returned $1.40 to the economy in terms of tax revenue, ticket sales, events, and that there was, in fact, that it wasn't just the right thing to do from a cultural perspective, but that from an economic perspective, it was the right thing to do. So I wonder, for each of your organizations, you know, Ireland's basic income experiment offers a stark contrast to what the US government is doing at this time. And so in the context of working with your organizations where there is no federal support and in fact antagonism from the federal government, I wonder how it has affected the theory of change for each of your organizations, the work that you do in the context of not just a lack of support, but also direct antagonism, and how you balance the one-on-one service, the one-on-one help that you have to give people in the community, with also the idea of creating structural systemic change.
That's a heavy question.
Yeah.
Very simple.
I would say specifically because we train for TV and film as well as live event production. So I would say in terms of the TV and film business, production goes to where a competitive tax incentive is. And so in many ways, I think the economy around TV and film is like self-sustaining. So folks are paying into their pension and benefits, and then they're able to like pay, and they're paying hefty taxes because they have high wages. So I think it's very much a helpful economy because it will just kind of survive on its own. But I think it has been really challenging within the last few years as production has left the United States and gone into more international territories. In general, we teach our students how to be entrepreneurial, how to really adjust their skill set to an evolving industry. And so that is really, so within our program, folks get an intro to what the career exploration that they can do within the entertainment industry. And then they get the specialty training, and then they actually get to be on set on an NBC Universal project, Netflix, et cetera. So they get to apply that skill set in real time. But what we're often telling them is like, you have to network. Network is a transferable skill you're gonna be using throughout your career. So for us, it's about what are the transferable skills that you can use and how can you adjust your skill set to what the opportunities are. So our most successful alumni, for example, are set dressing students who know how to adjust their skill set for Coachella as well. So they can do TV and film, they can do live events. So for us, it's really about the economy and the structure of health and your benefits is not always on your side, but what can you do to continue to be hireable and adjust to what the economy is doing? So we're not getting the help, but we're trying to equip our students with the skills so that they can adjust their skill set.
I think where I sit at the intersection of nonprofit and creatives, I think both sectors are, we have a good reputation for being very resourceful with very little in some cases. And one of the things that we have really done in the last 2 years specifically is a constant checking in and evaluation of whether what we're doing is the right thing to do, because we have a small team, we don't have a lot of resources to be able to put towards, big events, or we need to be able to be targeted and tailored to the needs of each of our participants where they are. For example, this mid-level cohort that I mentioned is very different from the soft skills, professional development, and resume help that we give our entry-level participants. In that, it's how do you look at a contract and evaluate it? How do you negotiate a salary? How do you approach a promotion? How do you deal with supervisors when there isn't a built-in structure for getting feedback on your performance? And all of that is something you have to take on yourself, and if you're not trained in how to do that, it's a very nuanced skill set. So we're always asking our participants, what can we do better? What do you need? And also they're on the front line. So what are you seeing that you can share with us to help us tap the right resources? We have 280 company partners that range from the large studios to, as I mentioned, the smaller production and post-production houses. How can we leverage their in-kind donations of their time or their mentorship? We have a mentorship program where all of those professionals mentor our participants one-on-one for 6 months, and we really curate that to make sure that we're being nimble with the time and the resources that we have and the expertise of the people that are in our network. And then we're kind of turning that around into making the case using data. So in the last 2 years, we've done an extensive data cleanup to be able to make the case for investing in the arts and investing in these specific areas in the arts. And I think that that's something that I hope that we can do with our partners as well, like sharing that out and being able to tell the story of, look, if you invest in this type of work, I know AI has been coming up a lot, but there's a lot of nuance there about what that means for different types of work. And I think that we just have to dive in and figure out how to make the most targeted intervention that we can and serve the needs of the people right now, the creatives that we're working with.
We work on 3 fronts: policy, resources, and partnerships. At the policy level, it's very simple. There's some people in government who suck, who are making policies and making resource allocations, and they should go. So we actually go into districts and say, you're a Congress member, you suck. Let's figure out who can replace you, and let's work with the person who's going to replace you at all levels, from helping you run a campaign, get the resources you need to run that campaign, and get rid of this sucky elected official that you guys have had. And we all can do that. And quite frankly, we all need to do that. Because we'll bitch later on about what's happening. But what did each of you do to make sure that at the policy level, we're changing the actors who are making decisions for us? The second is resources. We then go to those same elected officials to make sure that they invest. You know, we're very proud that the new Manhattan Borough President allocated his $50 million in capital that he has to allocate to the arts in Manhattan for the first time ever. And we want to make sure that as we go and elect people, we hold them accountable for that election. So government, you know, can you imagine the city of New York invests $26 million in tourism? It's laughable. And I got a call the other day, can you come and speak at City Hall to increase it to $35 million? Say, yeah, I go if we try to increase it to $100 million. But 35, it's really not. Because every tourist that comes to New York, the arts, it's crucial to the New York City experience. Many of them will watch the Statue of Liberty from the Bay and take a picture in the background, a selfie, but they will go to a show. They will go to a museum. There is actual things that are part of the experience of being a tourist in New York. And then finally, partnerships. We try to do nothing just the Miranda Family Fund. We try to go and convince others that this that we're doing, we're putting X amount of dollars, and we know you have dollars, so we want you to be in that partnership with us. We want you to help fund this scholarship. We want you to help theaters in the nonprofit sector create new works of art. And in those partnerships, we have a philosophy of life as a family that we wanted to permeate everything. So if we're working with Disney, we create a rider of how diversity is part of our relationship. If we are working with a theater, we want to make sure that that rider guides our relationship to open opportunities. You know, if we don't do it, and when you get access to resources, you don't do that, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Ashley, Hollywood CPR has spent decades helping people access careers behind the camera. And what are some of the misconceptions people have about opportunities in the entertainment industry beyond acting and directing?
I would say that I've touched upon this before. I think that these are artists that are bringing to life their the story within their own respective classifications. And I think that there's a lot of power in these being union careers, because our students are not only artists, but they organize with one another. I think what you were touching upon about really being a good member within your community, understanding how you can uplift one another through this work, understanding how you can continue to make this a competitive industry that can sustain yourself and your family are all equal components of what our students are graduating with. So I think they're artists and they're continuing to work. They're continuing to find different opportunities so that they can bring their work to life. But they are really, really talented folks that are very multifaceted because they graduate through the program with a diverse skill set.
Natalie, Group Effort Initiative has focused on creating paid opportunities and access points for emerging talent. What barriers continue to prevent talented people from entering and staying in the industry, and where are you seeing progress and challenges?
Oh, that's a great question and multi-pronged answer. I think one of the greatest challenges is financial stability and figuring out how you can plan for the future and the uncertainty of, particularly on productions. You don't know how long it will be between jobs. You don't know where you may have to relocate or how it impacts your family. And I think a lot of the education, I know Ashley has done some of this through Hollywood CPR, is really helping with financial planning and management of a career, long-term career, and being able to budget for those maybe droughts in between jobs and uncertainty in the industry. And then other things that are affecting that, like I think we were talking about this, supportive services, like even one of the programs we're working on in New Mexico, we're working on a location scout training, but housing is a huge issue for locations in far-flung areas, and the rising cost of gas for our participants who do come from lower-income communities. Like, how are you providing, as Doris Duke Foundation is doing through their program, the environment to create by taking away the stressors? And I think those are some of the things that organizations like Group Effort, Hollywood CPR, philanthropies, government can provide those buffers so that creatives, individuals can focus on the work solely. And then around that, I think we've increasingly tried to leverage our partnerships with government. So with the paid opportunities that you mentioned in Los Angeles and New York, we have partnerships with municipal governments to provide subsidized internships, which opens up job opportunities that didn't exist before. So it allows us to place our participants in corporate. We started out with corporate careers. This year, we piloted trying to subsidize production placements, which is very new, but a lot of government we've found, both in the subsidized internship programs and also in apprenticeship work that we've been doing, is not, it doesn't align with the creative industry. It is very much based on healthcare or building trades. And doesn't quite understand, the flow of production work or creative work. And so I think a lot of that is education and trying to work with government, who I understand, I come from government. I worked in federal government and city government. I know all of the different restrictions and requirements on the use of funds, but I think if we can find a way to help educate government on how they can support the creative industries in these specific ways and teach them more about the creative industries in particular and how they do differ from the ones that they're used to supporting through subsidized work or workforce development programs. I think that would go a long way. And that's really been a key opener of work opportunities, especially for entry-level professionals with those subsidized roles.
Let me add, we first want to make sure our fellows understand that artists get paid. And they should get paid whatever the prevailing wage is for that artist. We have a program with Tribeca Film Festival as part of our fellowship program, where we pick 3 Latinos to direct films. We give each of those Latinos $100,000 to do a short. Tribeca brings tons of support in terms of mentorship. At the end, that product gets shown as part of the Tribeca Film Festival. So the filmmaker leaves the program with something under their belt, having presented at Tribeca. And then we encourage a lot. We don't mandate, but if you don't do it, you're not a good person. We encourage a lot for them to hire other fellows and pay prevailing wage for all of the other things that a production it's putting in place, so that we then become a little engine where we are adding literally $1 million in this program to filmmakers and that network of artists.
And what has running the fellowship program taught you about what creative people need to succeed?
On the one hand, things that you will never think about. Like for actors, we just had 140 of them in New York this past week. But you need pretty pictures. You need to look great. I see some of my colleagues whenever I'm going to get an award in a gala and they introduce me. The person doesn't look at all like the picture. We want our artists to look like that old lady who looks great in the journal. So from little things like that to people who go to the second level, they have to do a contract. So we provide lawyers to help you so that you don't lose your shirt when you're doing a contract, because you're beginning your process as an artist. To now we have a grants program for people who want to develop work, where we will give a screenplay writer a grant. Just go 3 months to your house and think and write and try to move this piece of work to the next level. It's what is it that they need, which is what we have been talking about, so that you help develop that next generation of artists.
Yeah. Just to add to that, I think as our students are getting their required onset hours, a huge portion of their first set of hours is they're working on small projects. They're working on student films. They're getting the confidence up before they get onto a big lot production. And I think it would be great if there was funding that we could unlock to sustain some of the folks that we're serving from various communities that can't take those unpaid hours at the very beginning. And so what often happens is that there are folks that are able to sustain themselves, but they have income coming from like a different job or something like that. So for example, a lot of our students were on Obsession, like they worked on Obsession. So I think there's a way that we can also supplement some of the indie projects, support these indie projects, get creative about how we can unlock government funding so that we can work with these smaller artists so we can get some of these exciting projects off the map and create an ecosystem that's supporting those projects.
I spent 25 years in politics, as I'm sure you noticed. And if you look at who runs campaigns throughout the country, it's all white people. And do you know why it's all white people? Because their parents paid and allowed you to be an intern in a presidential campaign for 3 consecutive summers. So all of a sudden, you're a 23-year-old who have done shit in their lives, but you had parents who supported your ambition and your dreams. So we want to make sure that our artists have that same experience, that they get paid prevailing wage to develop the resume to go to that next job. Doesn't happen unless we intentionally do it.
Yes, exactly right. Absolutely. Now, I'm aware that we should move on to Q&A from the audience, so I'm going to combine 2 questions to one for my last question for you, and then we'll take questions from the audience. So the two questions that I'm going to combine, you can pick which of these you'd like to answer. What's one concrete action the film, media, arts, or philanthropic sectors could take in the next year to create more opportunity and stability for creative workers? And the other question is, for the artists and creative workers in the audience today, what's one piece of advice or encouragement you'd leave them with as they navigate their careers? So if you want to focus, a request to people from the industry, philanthropy, media, arts, or even policy, and then also a piece of advice. And then we'll take questions from the audience.
And I'm going to reference something that we talked about last night. I think that what we're navigating for a lot of nonprofits is there is often foundation funding, but it's very restricted. And like I mentioned before, we need to unlock unrestricted funding to experiment in this moment about how we can have more of maybe a social enterprise that's providing students for the creator economy to make up smaller crews. I just think that in this moment, the restricted funding can be very limiting. And on top of that, there's limited funding in general. So the more that we can create ecosystems where nonprofit and the work that we're doing, because we are bringing someone from a minimum wage job into a six-figure job, how can we make sure that we have the runway so that we can create more differing models to support this work and to support artists?
And there's excellent data from the Stupsky Foundation and also from Mackenzie Scott's philanthropy showing that those unrestricted funds, how critical they are to allow nonprofits to do their work and to allocate funds where most impactful.
I would say I completely agree with what Ashley said. And I think both of us understand the importance of focusing on the individual too. I think the way that we are effective in our work is focusing on an individual's career goals and then how to get them to where they are. And I think what I would ask for employers and for film and media companies is to also look at the value of the individual. I think that there is a lot of transition happening. There is a lot mergers, acquisitions, layoffs, et cetera, automation. But there is something that cannot be replaced by having a lot of different experiences. And there's a lot that goes into training someone to be able to do their job well. And I think that that's sort of getting lost in a rush towards efficiency and cost cutting. And I think what we try to do in connecting our participants to jobs is showing like how this multifaceted background and their life experience can add to a company culture, a team culture. And so much of the production is like enjoying being with someone for 15 plus hours a day. That goes a long way. And so I think like really focusing on the individual I would encourage companies to focus on that.
Just quickly, I think on an individual level, you have to be the best you can. I hate excuses. I had to work, my mother was sick. Great, get over it and move on in life. Because we have to be, particularly when you come from a diverse community, doubly as good to be able to make it. It's just the way it is. So there has to be a personal commitment to excellence and use every opportunity we get. I will not be who I am if I would have not had the help of a community organization that allowed me. And then I took every opportunity I could. And then also, this is like from left field, but I'm beginning to talk more about it. Foundations have restrictions, but funds, family funds, personal funds do not. And rich people or people with resources put millions of dollars in these funds. We have one. We as a family make decisions as how we're going to spend it. But most families do not. is just a way of parking money and get tax incentives by parking that money and not pumping it back into the economy. And as a government, we need to do something to make sure that those dollars are reinvested in communities.
So I believe with that, we're ready to move on to audience Q&A. And over here.
Oh, hi. Thanks to each one of you. Thank you for speaking today. My name's Steven, and for the past 5 years, we've been producing a impact project and documentary in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico that's about indigenous Maya women who work with native bees. As a commitment to collaborative storytelling is very important to us, we've been wanting to have members of our production team, which at this point, other than myself, is entirely female, on the production team who are indigenous and Maya. So we've started creating educational workshops throughout different pueblos in southern Mexico. And I was just wondering, like, with the work that you guys have done, it seems to be pretty targeted towards individual cities. I'm originally from New York, but I moved to the peninsula several years ago. And I just wanted to know if you had any advice or thoughts of how we can take these incentive educational workshops that we're doing for our documentary, but really create something that can be sustainable, continued on after the production, after the festival run year throughout the region.
Tell you, I started a company. I'd start companies just for the heck of it. It costs $80 to incorporate them. But it was actually, I got a blind solicitation from a couple of Mexican directors who were doing a documentary on mariachis. The story was interesting, so I created a company, and we invested, got the finances together to do the documentary. It's now in Netflix. It's called Going Varsity on Mariachi. And so it was born out of a request, but now we are actively looking for stories that are interesting, that advance a narrative, and that allows diverse actors and workers to participate in that endeavor.
Thank you so much.
Oh.
Hi, my name is Amaryllis, and my question to you guys is, when you were getting into your respective fields, was that originally your plan, or were you pivoting as you went along?
Oh, so I came up as I was originally, I'm from Boston. I came up through the nonprofit world, and then I moved to LA about 10 years ago, and I started at a talent agency. And I was so new to entertainment, I didn't know what CAA was, and it was one of the biggest talent agencies in the business. And so I think a lot of where I've ended up is an intersection of all my interests. So it's really at the intersection of social impact, entertainment, and how entertainment moves the needle for social issues. And so I think that it's been a little bit of my Gemini energy to like go and find something that really satiates a lot of my interests. But also understanding the through line of my work is always going to leave the community better than how I found it. So I trust my instinct a lot, and I think that's led me to take some paths that I wouldn't have taken, but I think I've ended up where I was meant to end up.
I'm old, different from the rest of the people here. I came to New York from a tiny little town in Puerto Rico to be a clinical psychologist, to realize really not what I wanted to do with my life, and sort of have just had one goal in mind for a long time. I needed to be able to provide for a family. So, but I just jumped from thing to thing. I'm sure that if someone would have diagnosed me a long time ago, I would have been ADHD, but they didn't. So it's creative energy instead. But I have finally said that the last chapter of my life, it's how do you use everything you have to leave some legacy behind. So that's what I'll do until I die at 77.
No.
Well, that's what the algorithm said, that I will die at 77. So I've used that as the number.
Defy the odds.
And Amaryllis, to answer your question, mine was a hard pivot, and I feel like every single step of my career has just been seizing opportunities, and it has been all thanks to a wonderful network of colleagues that have sort of appeared and reappeared at different stages of my career. I am a city planner by training. I have no experience in the entertainment industry whatsoever, but my background is in community and economic development, workforce development. Before working in this job, I did affordable housing, equity, and even some disaster relief and preparedness. So I feel like the different things that I learned at each role in my career is really just like identifying partnerships. Like I think I have been really open-minded about, identifying my colleagues' strengths. I think trying to figure out how I can help create opportunities for them, how we can work together, how I can support their work, and then in turn, I think like later on downstream, figuring out how I can fit in, and I like to think that my different background can help me identify some more non-traditional partnerships for group effort to kind of break out of the mold as the industry really continues to evolve. So I think just having an open mind, keeping up with your network, and then being ready to pivot when you see an opportunity and you're interested and curious about it. I've never regretted taking the leap when I have, and it's led to a very interesting career.
And I would add just to that my career has been in academia and nonprofits and startups and now in screenwriting and producing. And the thing that guides me through all of that is being really clear about what my values are, because you can find people in any industry that share your values, and that can really lead you to an exciting career in lots of different places if you know what matters to you, and you're able to look for people in whatever industry, whatever organization that share those values with you.
I think we're at time, and I hate to say that because I know you have a lot of questions here, so I hope you're sticking around because there's clearly a lot of people that want to speak to you. But one more hand for everyone on our stage here. Fantastic. Thank you.